Hey, ever wonder how to get your Notion databases to talk to each other and do like important things in coordination with each other? Well, this video is about using Make to handle some communication between two different Notion databases. So this is Make in front of me. Make is kind of like Zapier, and we're going to be using this. It's basically an automation tool, right? And I'll compare it with Zapier if you're more familiar with Zapier. It's a low code. You don't really need to know how to code to do this, but it will help. It's a little more complicated than Zapier, but a lot more powerful and somehow it's cheaper. So we'll take a look at that. But let's look at the case study we're going to do here. Not too long ago, a company came knocking and they were having some trouble doing making their databases communicate with each other, right? And now I'm just blanking out these because I've just ran it. It definitely works, but want to show you guys that it works properly. So X all this stuff out. So what they wanted to do, their specific issue was that they had all these invoices, and here's like a sample set of invoices we're going to use for this demo. And then they had bank statements here, which were all could have could or could not, like some of them are related to the invoices, some of them aren't, right? And they want to figure out how to, whenever they get transactions, whenever they get new statements in, they're able to update the status of their invoice data table here, database, to be either partially paid, unpaid, or paid. So they would know where they're at, and they could easily glance if their customers have paid them, and everything is straight. So the other thing that they had also going on was that they have negative values in their table, depending on if there was money out or money in. So we wanted to handle those as well. So now what we're going to do in this automation is basically exactly what I said. We'll run this automation and we'll get this payment status right, and we'll get the amount paid correct, amount paid from the database, and then update the date that it was paid so we all know. And the way that we would do that is that we would take the invoice ID here, and that's in the name column, and match it. The client had told me that they would always at least be guaranteed to have the invoice ID in here in the transaction name, but there might be other text, and we would have to find a way to match that. So that was a problem set. Now, if your specific situation, you couldn't rely on there being an ID, a neat little ID in here, there's other ways to do it. You might want to match, you might want to check within a specific date range, or obviously match the amount you expected to be paid. Maybe there's some other things you can put together to positively match a transaction, although IDs are the best, definitely. So that would be the 100% way. So let's take a quick look before we start. Let's compare. Oh yeah, and the reason why we have euros in here, I know we're an American company, but these guys are from the Netherlands. They were Dutch, things what you call Netherlandians. But anyways, Holland, right? They were Dutch. So they use euros. That's why this demo has euros. So let's take a look at why we're going to use Make.com instead of Zapier for this. Pricing, pretty much pricing, and also Make is a lot more complex. It allows you to do more things with it. I think this thing might be actually kind of hard to do with just Zapier, because Zapier is friendly to beginners. You could start plugging things and you don't need to know code or anything like that. Make, you could start plugging things in too, but it allows you to do a little more than what Zapier would do. But geez, the free tier here, if you were just going to try out this tool to see if it was for you, you'd only get 100 tasks a month. That's compared to Make. And I promise you, they're not paying me for this. So this is just my opinion. Comparing to Make, which will give you 1,000 operations for the month. And then if you bump that up to $10, you'd get a factor of 10 added on for operations. And it would, I think you add $8 more, I think they allow you to run much more complex automations. I think that's how they don't give you like an extra tier, although they let you add certain operations. So if you added $8, they let you do 20,000. So they're doubling it. Now, if you look at Zapier, you're gonna start with 750 tasks, and then you go up to $40 for 1.5K task. That's crazy. Like, you're not getting anything. And I'm assuming a task, it has to be, because it's not like you're going to make 10,000 like specific like automations. They're just charging you per run every time you use them, right? Not charging you, but that's how you get certain runs. And it's the same with Make. So the pricing is insane for Zapier for doing less. They do have some integrations that Make does not have, but where Make makes up for that, no pun intended, is that they allow you to kind of use something like an HTTP request. So you can kind of link up whatever you want. I don't think Zapier has that. And it allows you a bunch of different tools and customizations that just make it so much more powerful for a lot less money. So that's my pitch for using Make. I think it's a great product. I haven't found anything better than this, but there's a lot of automation stuff out there, so do your research. Now, let's look at our demo here. So like I said, and also I want to say, just take a look at how neat this is. It really does look attractive. I like the look of Make It. You have all these fancy bubbles, and it's easy, it's visual, rather than just text box, step-by-step things like Zapier. You get these neat text boxes, bubbles, these neat module bubbles that you get to see how your automation is working. So I'm going to walk you through each of these steps. In Notion, if you wanted to create a new scenario, you would just come to you usually come here to your main page would be your organization. Then you would hit here, create new scenario, right? And it would take you to an empty little bubble thing, cute little bubble, and you could search whatever you needed for your automations in this side panel thing. They're all about their side panels. You see, it takes a second because there's a lot of automation, a lot of integrations with other tools. And then you would you would click on whatever you're looking for, and then you use one of these, very much like Zapier does. You would click on one of these. So in this one, you would need to search your objects. And also you would connect your, there's a whole way that you're supposed to connect your Notion database to, your Notion, just your Notion workspace to Make. I'll have to cover that in another, I don't want this to be too long, so I'll have to cover that in another video. But I have this one set up. So I'll run through the steps quick here. First things first, we will grab the database ID for our search objects function here for Notion. And that one you can always find right here in the URL. So that from that slash to that question mark is your database ID. Once you throw it in here, all that allows you, this allows you to, it's going to like think about it, kind of like the first time. What it does every time once you have an ID in here, it pulls in all of your columns, and then you see all your columns in here. What we want is payment status, and we want to check if the payment status is not paid, right? If it's empty, if it's partially paid or unpaid, we want to run it through, right? But if it's paid, ignore it. We're done with that. Then you could set your limit. how many of these do you want to check at a time? Um, so that's also important. And then you could also sort. This one would be important. If I was really implementing this for somebody, I would also set the timestamp here so we get all the latest values, right? And you would check that against you could either do a timestamp or a property field. If you have like a date field in here, it would switch up for you to know when it was, if you want to check date issued, when did I issue this, right? You could do that as well. But this is a simple example, and so we're going to do it simple. Limit, right? So we talked about the limit. This will give you a number of results. Now, what happens here, what you have to understand when you're using make, is that when you pull in, this is going to pull in a maximum of 10, but you're only going to pull in so many that fill out your, like, if there's not 10, you'll get like 5, right? Or 3 that match your filter, right? And then in this case, we should get 6, because what we're going to be checking, we have 5 invoices here, but we also have this blank row. I added this blank row because the last time it threw me for a loop, and I want to show you how to handle it, because sometimes you might have these random blank rows in your database, and that's going to really throw you for a loop. Handling them in make, because it'll mess everything up. It'll have errors and you won't know what's going on. So I figured out a way to handle them. You might have thought that all you have to do is say, all right, if there's no like name column, right, you would just say, hey, if this is empty, then don't give it to me, right? If this is not empty, I should say, and is not empty, this actually does not work. Let's try it. See, does not work. It will complain for some reason. This does just not work. It should work. So make, if you're watching this, please fix that. But it doesn't. So you have to do this thing when you start your whole automation thing. You get to click on the end of these bubbles, and it selects the next one. So you could connect one Notion function to the next Notion function. And that's how you string things together, right? So that's what I did here. And in the middle of these lines, you can click on them and add a filter. So I added this filter called is not empty. And what it does, it checks the property value for any bundle that comes through. And so each item that matches our filters is going to be considered a bundle. And each bundle is going to run one by one all the way through here, right? All the way through here. And it'll go back and go through the next bundle all the way through here, right? So for this bundle, wherever it is, and this side panel pops up every time to let you access the properties of any given, bundle that you get back from a run. So let's say this is saying if this ran, this would be all the stuff that you would get from this bubble, right? And here's your properties in here. And what we would want is to grab the name, and we would want to say if this name, the plain text value of this name, we want it to exist. Check if it exists. If it doesn't exist, then it is empty, and don't pass it along to the next ones, because that's gonna mess things up. All right, now we have, this will give us 5 non-empty values that are not paid, right? According to how our database looks. The next thing we want to do is grab the database ID of our bank database. You can see here, bank, grab it here, and we want to see if the transaction name contains the ID. So you would use this, right? You grab the transaction name, and this is getting pulled in because you put the right database ID. And you would check using your text operator, because this is a text. If it was a number, you would use these number operators. And you would say, does this text contain the value of the previous, right? Right here, we're going to be getting the values, all of this pointing to what you get here. So the name, and you would just demonstrating how it pops in. Just click on that. You get name, plain text. So once that's in, all you would have to do is now you could do a sort as well, just to make sure that you sort for the top ones. And you would probably want to make sure that you would sort for the earliest or the most recent items in your database, right? And we won't do that for this one. Like I said, it will be a simple one. We only have a few items in our database anyways. And then I'm putting here 50 just to represent you. Even if you get a few items from your invoice statements, invoice database, you want to match against, like, check a lot of them in the bank. Now, you would want to maybe filter them with the time, like I said, so you can make these things run faster. Because if you have a lot of items, this can take a while. And then we are going to address that absolute value issue. There's no easy way to get the absolute value. So handling these negative values, there's just not any like negative, absolute value. Hey, give me the absolute value of this in Make. So what you have to do is actually get clever. I use this tool that you can grab from the bottom here. And if you click that, it'll give you a nice little bubble, and you can put it wherever you want. Isn't that cute? Zapier doesn't do that. So you would grab the bubble here, the switch tool, right? And what I did, and this is pretty clever if I say myself, because I looked around the internet, there was like no good way, and nobody had like a easy way to do this. So this would be also helpful for anybody who's just looking for a solution for doing stuff like this in Make. I took the property value of amount paid. So you see, every time you add another module, right, you get to see in the panel. So we're on the third one now. We get to see the previous two, right? So this one was our first one. It adds it to the list. So whatever would come out of your previous two, you can now access its properties. So what we did, we grabbed the amount paid, we multiply it by -1, and then we check if this value multiplied by -1 is greater than 0, then we know this value was negative, right? So if this is true, right, it's the identity principle. If negative times a negative is greater than 0, and that's positive, then if this was true, this value is negative. So what we want to output is the positive value, which is just this times -1 and give us the value, right? But if this becomes a negative value now, less than 0, you would just pass in the old amount because it's already positive. So it's not exactly coding, but coding is kind of math. It's math, that's when you ask your teachers, you're like, when am I ever going to use this? This is where you used it. So now we get to the fun part of the router. The router is kind of like a switch. It handles a bunch of different situations. Now, depending on what you want to happen, you can have all these different futures. Now, it could be one or all of these things, right? So you have to be careful when you set up these things, because it doesn't guarantee that one bundle is going to go one way. Because if it matches more, then it could match all of these, and all of these things could happen, right? So now, what we would do to make sure one or the others, like I have paid here, partially paid, not paid, is you add these filters. And this is paid filter basically checks if this amount paid, right, it's coming from this bubble. See, it's kind of pulsating there. And if it's equal to, it's a numeric operator now, if it's equal to the amount due, right, from the invoices, then we can consider it paid. And then what we'll do is we'll update. Remember, this is the ID of the invoice database. We'll update the invoice database showing that now the payment status should be paid. And then we'll set the start time. We'll set the date paid time, which is going to be the date paid time in this, from the bank database. And they'll always give you start, end, and time zone. Now, you won't see any end value if there's no range. So you click on that. and it'll pop in, you'll populate the thing right there. And that's all you need. All of these can be left blank because you didn't change them. It won't change the current values to blank, but it will update the invoice that was paid to paid and give you the date paid. So that's what we want. The next one is partially paid. So we just want to check if the output is less than the amount due, right? So the output of this, which is now always a positive value, which represents what was paid from the positive value that was paid from the bank database. If that is less than what was due, then it's partially paid. So we'll update this to partially paid, and then we'll set the date that was paid, because I guess technically something was paid, not all of it though. And then our last one here is not paid, which we would just check if we didn't get an object at all. So we're just getting this. If this doesn't exist, we got no matches, then it was just not paid. So for any bundle that comes in here, if it didn't get a match, then update that same bundle to not paid. So now we'll run it through. Hopefully this works 100%. I mean, it should, because I ran it before, but you never know. So let's run. Boom, 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 boom. All right. As we expected, we filtered the one out here, and you can see it was empty. That was our empty set, empty row. And then we matched 5 here, or it didn't match 5. We can see that it checked for 5. And then we see here that we got our switch through, and it'll always show 5 because we got 6 bundles here, and one of them we filtered out. So it ran it 5 times. You should look at these bubbles as it ran 5 times. And you could always snipe in here and see what happened. You know, what was the input? What was the output? And we could see we got 1 paid, 2 partially paid, and 2 not paid, which is, I think, what we should expect. Now we can go to our invoice database and see here now, this updates. That took a second. You should be able to see here now that we had our payment status is correct. So this one's unpaid, 0, partially paid, so we got 600. Unpaid here, 0, and then partially because it wasn't the full amount. Now our paid did not set the full amount paid, and I think that's just because I must have left out the value here. Let's see here. Did I put? Nope, I forgot to put amount paid. So the amount paid would just, you just populate that in here. So all in all, it would work. Maybe we want to run it one more time, and just so you guys don't think I messed it up. So by resetting those, that should let us run it again. So let's run it again. Boom. All right. So now we should see, yes, we did get $1,000 for Eager Entertainment, and everything is copacetic. Everything is right. We also got our dates paid correct, and it matched the right database values here. So here, October 6th for $600, and we got here October 6th, $600. So that's how you would get your databases to talk to each other. So yeah, thank you for watching. This has been Kevin for Power Moves. If you have any other automations you'd like me to check out, you've had some stuff that you've been trying to get to work on Notion, Make, or anything else, reach out and we can make a video about it. Or if you just need help, reach out and we can see how to help you guys, because we do also freelance these automations.